prices are rising faster than most people expected. Every time you go to the store, it feels like you're paying more for the same basic foods. But what if some of the things you keep buying could actually be grown at home for a fraction of the cost? Many of these foods are surprisingly easy to grow, and some of them keep producing over time, which makes them even more valuable. The further we go on this list, the more money you can actually save. These are 10 foods you should stop buying and start growing instead. The first food on this list is radishes. Radishes are the food that give you fast results without costing much to start. Radishes can be ready to harvest in about 20 to 25 days, which makes them one of the quickest foods you can grow. From the moment you plant the seeds, they develop rapidly and don't require much attention. This makes them perfect if you want something simple that still delivers visible results in a short time. What makes radishes a good starting point is how reliable they are. They grow quickly, don't need much space, and give you a clear harvest without much risk. Even if you're new to gardening, this is one of the easiest ways to get your first success. They might not save you the most money compared to other foods on this list, but they are the perfect introduction. You plant them, wait a short time, and then you actually get something you can eat. That's what makes them so satisfying, especially at the beginning. Up next is spinach. Spinach is one of those foods that seems cheap, but adds up surprisingly fast over time. Spinach usually takes around 20 to 30 days before you can start harvesting, especially if you pick it early as baby leaves. That's a relatively short wait, but the real value comes from how often people buy it. Small bags at the store don't last long, and you end up replacing them again and again. What makes spinach worth growing is how much you can get from a small area. A few plants can supply multiple meals, and once you start harvesting, you don't need to buy it nearly as often. Instead of paying for packaged greens every week, you can simply pick what you need. This one is where the savings start to become noticeable. It's still easy to grow, but now you're replacing something you regularly spend money on, which makes a real difference over time. At number 3, we have leaf lettuce. Leaf lettuce is one of the easiest ways to stop buying salads every week. Leaf lettuce usually takes around 25 to 30 days before you can start harvesting, but the real advantage is how you harvest it. Instead of taking the whole plant, you can cut the outer leaves and let the center keep growing. This allows you to keep using the same plant over time, instead of constantly replacing it. What makes this so useful is how often people buy lettuce without thinking about it. It's one of those items that quietly adds up, especially because it doesn't last very long in the fridge. When you grow it yourself, you only take what you need, which means less waste and fewer trips to the store. This one is where things start to shift. You're no longer just growing something for fun. You're replacing something you regularly spend money on, and that's where it begins to make a real difference. And this is where it starts getting interesting. The next ones can actually replace what you buy every single week. Let's continue with the next one. Green onions. This is one of the easiest ways to stop spending money on something you keep buying over and over again. Green onions can be ready to harvest in about 10 to 14 days when regrown. And the best part is that you don't even need to start from seeds. If you keep the root ends and place them in water or soil, they will begin growing again within just a few days. This means you can reuse the same plant multiple times instead of constantly buying new ones. What makes this so valuable is how often green onions are used. They are added to many meals in small amounts. When you grow them yourself, you always have fresh ones available, and you completely remove that repeated cost. This is where the savings start to feel real. You're no longer just reducing spending, you're eliminating it for this item entirely, which makes it one of the most satisfying foods to grow. Next on the list are herbs like basil and parsley. Herbs are one of the easiest ways to cut down on small but constant expenses. Most herbs take around 3 to 5 weeks before you can start harvesting, but once they are established, they continue producing new leaves over time. Instead of buying small bunches that often go bad in the fridge, you can simply pick what you need directly from the plant. What makes herbs so valuable is their price compared to how little you actually get in stores. A small pack can cost quite a bit, especially for something you only use in small amounts. When you grow them yourself, A single plant can last for a long time and provide far more than what you would normally buy. This one stands out because of how quickly the savings add up. It might seem like a small change at first, but over time, it removes a cost that most people don't even notice they keep paying. This next one is something most people plant once and then almost forget about. Garlic is one of the lowest effort foods you can grow, yet it replaces something people constantly buy. Garlic usually takes a few months to fully develop, but it requires very little attention during that time. Once planted, it grows quietly in the background without needing much care. When it's ready, you don't just get one piece, you get a full bulb made up of multiple cloves, which can be used over a long period. What makes garlic especially useful is how often it's used in everyday cooking. It's a basic ingredient in many meals, which means you keep buying it without thinking about it. Growing it yourself removes that regular purchase and gives you a supply that lasts much longer. This one stands out because it's so simple. You put it in the ground, give it time, and in return, you get a reliable ingredient that you would otherwise keep paying for. The next food is beans. Beans are one of the most productive plants you can grow for the effort you put in. Beans usually take around 50 to 60 days to start producing, but once they do, they can give you a steady supply over a longer period. A single plant can produce many pods, which quickly adds up compared to what you would normally buy. What makes beans so valuable is how much food you get from a small starting cost. Seeds are inexpensive, yet the output can be surprisingly high. Whether you use them fresh or let them mature and dry, they give you flexibility and volume at the same time. This one stands out because of its efficiency. You invest very little at the beginning, but the return you get in food is much higher, which is where the savings really start to increase. Now we're getting into foods that can really make a difference over time. At number 8, we have tomatoes. Tomatoes are one of the most commonly bought foods, which makes them a strong option if you want to reduce everyday spending. Tomatoes usually take around 60 to 80 days to start producing, but once they begin, they can give you a steady supply over time. A single plant can produce many fruits, especially when conditions are right, which quickly adds up compared to what you would normally buy. What makes tomatoes especially valuable is how often they are used. From simple meals to sauces, they are part of everyday cooking, which means you keep buying them without thinking about it. Growing them yourself gives you access to fresh tomatoes without constantly paying for them. This one stands out because of how much it replaces. It's not just a small ingredient, it's something you use frequently, and that's where the savings become more noticeable over time. Coming in near the top of the list is zucchini. Zucchini is one of those plants that can produce far more food than most people expect. Zucchini usually starts producing in around 45 to 60 days, and once it begins, it grows very quickly. A single plant can produce many large vegetables over the season, which is why people are often surprised by how much food they end up with. What makes zucchini so valuable is the amount you get compared to the cost of growing it. One inexpensive plant can replace multiple trips to the store, especially during peak production. It also grows fast enough that you can harvest regularly without waiting too long between each one. This one stands out because of pure volume. For the amount of space and effort it needs, the return is extremely high, which is why it can save much more money than most foods on this list. And finally, at number 10, we have potatoes. Potatoes are one of the most valuable foods you can grow if your goal is to save as much money as possible. Potatoes usually take around 80 to 120 days to fully mature, but the amount of food they produce makes the wait worth it. From a single potato, you can grow an entire plant that produces many more underground. This creates a very high return compared to the small costs of getting started. What makes potatoes especially powerful is how filling and useful they are. Unlike herbs or small greens, potatoes can become a real part of meals and provide a large amount of food from a relatively small area. They also store well for long periods, which adds even more value after harvest. This one takes the top spot because nothing else on this list gives you as much food for such a low starting cost. If you want the biggest savings over time, potatoes are one of the best choices you can make. Growing your own food is not just about gardening. It's about reducing how much you constantly spend on basic things. Even replacing a few store-bought foods can make a noticeable difference over time. The key is starting with foods you actually use regularly, because once you grow them yourself, you begin to realize how much money you were spending without even noticing.